Morning. There's a real likelihood that I will cry most of the way through this. So, I'd just like to say up front that any tears that I shed up here will be, please consider them tears of gratitude to God, no longer tears of shame. For about 20 years, I was a slave to alcohol. I did nothing. I went nowhere without considering how and where I would get my next drink. I wouldn't even go on a walk with my family without taking a Pepsi, dumping half of it out and filling it up with rum to take on the walk with me. Literally every moment, every day I spent considering how and when I would drink. Every day I drank 12, 15 beers a day. On the weekends I didn't even start drinking until I drank 12 beers. I mean, I'd pick up a 12-pack when I left work, and by the time I got home from work 12 miles later it'd be a 9-pack. And I would spend the rest of the evening consuming that, and a lot of times go and get more. I was consumed with guilt. In my heart, I knew that I was not the man that I should be. I was not the father that I should be. I was not the husband that I should be. And I would lay in bed at night and I would beg God to take the desire from me. I didn't want it, but I didn't seem to have any control over it. Anyway, there were several things that happened back in 2006 that kind of made me see it for what it is. Okay. First of all, Melissa told me of a conversation that she overheard Lawrence having with one of his friends about how he hated that I drank, and he hated the way that it made me smell, and he hated the way that it made me act, and that he was never going to do that. He was never going to be like that. That was a real punch to the gut because I always thought that I would stop before it had that kind of effect on my children. I'm the son of an alcoholic, and it made me remember how my father's alcoholism affected me, and I didn't want my children to have those same experiences. I want to take a moment here to say that my father was a loving, devoted Christian man, and he was never mean. He worked a lot of times 3 jobs to raise the 7 kids, and while he drank a lot, he was still a loving, devoted, good father, and I just worried about him. My mother worried about him, and so I just wanted to qualify that. But anyway, there was this conversation that Melissa told me about, and it was the first step in a 3-day process that really opened my eyes. Not long after that, I went with my father-in-law to court. He had worked at the local Casey's, and he got arrested in a sting operation for selling alcohol to a minor, which was kind of ironic because he would card everybody. But he was busy and she looked old enough. And anyway, he got arrested for selling alcohol to a minor, and I went to court with him to be a support for him. And sitting in that courtroom, they start the court day with the guys that have been incarcerated for DUIs. So here they come, in their orange jumpsuits, one by one, shackled at the wrists, chained to their ankles, shuffling up before the judge. And that's how they start the court date. Each one comes up, and beside me and him are the wives and the children of these men who have been, mostly men, who have been arrested for DUI. And they're crying, and the guys are up there and they're crying, they're standing before the judge, and each one of them, you know, pleading for leniency. And I just had this wave of, oh my God, that is me. I mean, but for the grace of God. If I drove drunk once, I've done it 10,000 times. If I was going anywhere, I was drinking and driving. I drank all the time. And I just realized, oh, you know, that could just as easily be me. So there was that. And within a few days of that, I think it was the next day, it was kind of a 1-2-3 process. I was watching television, and I was watching a movie called Devil's Advocate. In this movie, Al Pacino is the devil, and Keanu Reeves is a young lawyer who works for him. And there's a scene in that movie where Keanu Reeves is in the elevator with these beautiful women that are Al Pacino's girls, you know. And there's a scene where they kind of morph from being beautiful into these hideous demon-like creatures. Anyway, that movie was instrumental in me realizing that for me, alcohol is like me opening the door and inviting Satan into my house and into my life. And I came to understand through being in God's Word that the desire to drink it's an earthly, it's a human desire, like so many others. And it's part of living in this flesh, in this world. And that we can try to wish away the things of this world, but they're part of living in the human condition. And all these years I begged God to take this desire from me, and I realized that He wasn't going to take the desire from me, that it is a desire of the flesh. And when I came to understand that, I changed my prayer from, God, please take this from me. Please take this desire from me, to, God, let me see it for what it is. When I open the refrigerator and I see that beer, see that alcohol, let me see the way that it makes my wife feel. Let me see the way that it makes my children feel. Let me see the $300 a month that belongs in my family's budget that I'm just throwing out the window, you know. And at that moment, God answered that prayer. Almost 6 years later, if I make it through today, it was the 11th of June 2006 that I took my last drink. I still have the desire to drink, but I see it clearly for what it is. Anyway, that's my story.